All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shiur should be Ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavril Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and B'schos l'refuah shalema Bekarov, Mishalom ben Sarachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Now, today we are on page 127 in the Or Avigdor, for those who are following along. And today, we're going to just finish up and talking about this third preface of Bitachon, this third piece of structure, which we started talking about yesterday, about no partners. That Hashem is not looking for any partners when it comes to his trust. And you only should have trust in Hashem alone. And so he finishes off like this. So Rav Av says that even though it's a big accomplishment to really trust in Hashem, even a bit, you should not be satisfied with that. He says, I know yesterday we finished off, we talked about that every little bit counts, and we should work our way towards 10%, 20%, 30%. But he says, don't be satisfied with just a little bit. You should know that true bitachon is not just trust only in Hashem. True bitachon is to trust only in Hashem. So start out little by little, first 10%, then the 20%. But he's saying, don't get complacent. Don't say, I'm good where I am. No, always strive to be better until you reach that 100% mark. And that's the point where he wants to make over here. And when a person trusts in another power in addition to Hashem, he says, the very fact that he has trust in someone else is the strongest fact in his being deprived of what he's hoping for. The very fact that you put even the slightest trust in someone else, Hashem says, I don't want to help. I might not want to help over here. There's different factors that Hashem puts into his algorithm over there, but he wants to see that you only trust in him 100%. You could use other people for help, but the trust in the outcome should be only in Hashem. And Rabbi Victor says over here, it says there was a situation occurred during the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. People today don't really realize this, but during the Beis HaMikdash time, there was this huge, in the Gemara time, there was this huge drive of people to be over the Avodah Zarah. They would go and they would be humongous idol worshippers. Now, understand that these people, they weren't exactly people who they didn't believe in Hashem. As a matter of fact, these people, these idol worshippers in the times of the Beis HaMikdash and the Gemara, all those times, these people were regular Yidden. They ate kosher, they kept Shabbos, they davened 3 times a day. The problem they had is that there was these people that would say, okay, if you pray to this Avodah Zarah, then you might be able to get parnasa. And so it's not that they let go of Hashem. They just took 5%, 10%, 20% of their trust, and they put it into this Avodah Zarah, and they said, okay, for this Avodah Zarah, I'm just going to trust him when it comes to my parnasa, or for rain, or for whatever. And the rest of it is for Hashem. That's fine. And what he's talking about over here is the understanding that the goal over here is the 100%. We should strive to get better and better every single day, but don't get complacent at your 50% mark, at your 60% mark, or whatever you get, you plateau at. Don't get complacent. Keep working harder in order to get to that 100% mark. And he says, he finishes off talking about the story, but he said that he had heard that if you worship a particular idol, it would be good for success in business or having children. So they said, we'll try that. These Yidden, they would try that in times of Beis HaMikdash. And they failed to recognize the severity of trusting in idols, even when they maintained their devotion towards Hashem. Even though these people were from people, I guess. They kept Shabbos, they kept kosher, they did all the mitzvahs, but they also utilized Avodah Zarah for certain aspects of their lives. And a person is committing the grave sin of Avodah Zarah if he puts his trust in anything besides Hashem. He's comparing it. If you put your trust in anything but Hashem, he's being strong over here with his words, Rabbi Victor Miller. He says it's just like you're doing Avodah Zarah. He says because in times of the Gemara, times of Beis HaMikdash, when these people, they were from people, so to speak. They were. But they put the trust in a certain aspect into another Avodah Zarah. And so he's saying over here, if you do it like they do, it's just like you do in Avodah Zarah. So when you go out there and you utilize assistance from people, from things, technology, whatever it is in your life that you have, just be mindful. Just be mindful and say to yourself, just think to yourself, just say, hey, I know it's Hashem's outcome. I'm utilizing this just because this is the Ishtadlis portion. The moment, Rabbi Vigdamel says, the moment you stop putting your faith and effort, your faith and hope and trust in that thing or that person, that's where he says very, very strongly that it's just like you're doing avodah zarah. Kamosh Nema, as it says, cursed is the man who trusts in people and makes flesh his strength, meaning that he makes the strength that he trusts in a human being and turns his heart away from Hashem. It's not talking about a person who originally turned away from Hashem. He trusts in Hashem, but in addition to trusting in Hashem, he puts some degree of trust into another person. And that's what he's saying. So you see that bitachon is not an easy thing to acquire. And that's what we're finishing off with. But understand that it's something that we have to continue to work on ourselves towards getting better and better every single day. And with that, I want to talk a little bit of a piece on this week's Parsha, a very interesting piece, actually. And this week in Parshas Re'eh, he talks about, there's actually a very interesting story about Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and he met with a very famous person that we all know today, people who watch social media, and his name is Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is extremely outspoken. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs actually flew to Canada once to meet with Jordan Peterson and spoke with him. And during the conversation, there was a very big moment of intensity. And Peterson was talking about his daughter, Michaela. Michaela was diagnosed with severe illness that attacked her joints, and she had a really, really bad, some type of arthritis called polyarticular juvenile idiopathic arthritis. And it attacked a big portion of her body. She needed to have replacements and other kind of treatments. And when Peterson was telling Jonathan Sachs about it, he says like this: one of the things we were very careful about and talked with her, with Michaela, Jordan Peterson tells Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, he said, I spoke to my daughter Michaela a lot about that she's not let herself to regard herself as a victim. It's very easy for us as people, when we're having a difficult time, to get depressed, sit back and say, okay, I'm just a victim of circumstance. I'm a victim of society. You know, this is me. I'm whatever. I can't do anything about it. It just is what it is. And Jordan Peterson continues to tell Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, he says, a man, she had big reason to play the victim card because she was literally, her entire body was overtaken by this illness. But he says, as soon as you see yourself as the victim, that category that you put yourself, it puts yourself in the category of anger, of revenge. And that takes you to places that philosophically it's a terrible place to be. And to her great credit, Jordan Peterson tells Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, towards Michaela's credit, I would say that this is part of what allowed her to emerge from this, because she did eventually figure out what was wrong with her. And by all appearances fixed about 90% of what she was. But the reason that she was able to pull out of this is because she never played the victim card. But what did she do? He goes further to talk about this week. He says, there's two ways to look at life. We all go through experiences. We all have struggles. We all have things that we've had. There's two things that we have. We could look at the past and play the victim card and say, look what I've gone through. This is who I am. Or we could look at the future. This week in the Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us, he's telling us that we need to look. He says over here, see, I'm setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you heed my commandments to Hashem, then you will be cursed. And if you listen, then you'll be blessed. What is the point he's making over here? The point he's making is, if you look back in your life and you say, this is what I've gone through and I'm the victim, what it's going to portray on you is that anger, that bitterness, that inability to move forward and to grow from that. But if you take your experiences and say, that is in the past, and I cannot change the past, that's something we can't do. But what I could do is, I could look at the future. I could say, I'm going to get out there. I am going to push myself. I am going to work harder to be able to change my lot, to change my outcome. And even though at the end of the day, whatever's supposed to happen, that's up to Hashem. But Hashem wants to see you trying. He's not going to give you a freebie so easily. So you get out there. Don't live in the past. Don't cry about what happened. Don't play the victim card because it gets you nowhere. It just makes you bitter. It makes you depressed. You sit around, you do nothing, and people care. Yes, yeah, I feel bad for you. And you want to do your friend a favor? Your friend that's bitter, your friend that's angry at what has happened over the past, go over to him, console him, give him a hug. But don't let him sit there. Don't let him permeate. Don't let him marinate in that past because that's just going to keep him there. He's never going to change and he's never going to grow. So yes, there is a time when you go into an ER to fix a trauma. But then there's a time to go to rehab and to grow out of it and to get better in life altogether. And that's what we learned from this week's Parsha. And this is what Rav Jonathan Sachs said. It was such a powerful takeaway from Jordan Peterson about his daughter Michaela. He says, if we play the victim card, we'll never ever get anywhere. But if we look ahead and say, I could change in the future, I could work towards changing the future, then you have a much better chance of getting there, survival, and surpassing all the boundaries that you thought you had in place for you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today. Have a wonderful, a beautiful Shabbos, and I love you all.